The Dark Knight movies ended over a decade ago, and Matt Reeves is making something special with the Batman movies, but what if we had gotten a series of Batman movies that deals with the more fantastical elements of the Caped Crusader? These larger-than-life villains with a Robin at Batman's side. What would that actually have looked like? Now, a quick disclaimer, this video will not be taking place inside of James Gunn's DCU. This is not a Brave and the Bold pitch or a pitch for the Batman Part 2. I want to write a trilogy that can show everyone, remind everyone, that the Batman doesn't need to be confined to the gritty realism he's often portrayed in. Most of his villains are fantastical and over the top, but that's why we love them. That's why we love Batman. A man without any abilities, just trying to do the right thing and make sure no person goes through the same pain he once did all those years ago. This series of films doesn't need to do anything different. It doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. The same way Insomniac stuck with the roots of their beloved icon with Spider-Man back in 2018, so can we. The beauty of this is that by bringing Batman back to what fans originally loved, we can create a fresh take that feels new, something that feels exciting, something that can give us the grittier version of hope that the character represents. Gotham City needs to feel alive. It needs to feel more vibrant. This movie isn't taking place in New York or Chicago, but Gotham. In order for these comic book villains to work, they must be placed in a city where their existence is plausible. We need to see how the people of Gotham react to their vengeful protector, the Batman who scours the streets at night, the same streets that they walk during the day. The first film will be titled Batman Never Fear. The movie would open in the streets of Gotham. Rain beats down on the city, illuminated by the lights of the bright buildings and the moonlight above. A homeless man sits outside on the wet concrete, hoping for anyone to show kindness. As if his hopes were answered, a man approaches. He's dressed in a long black coat and wears a hat, covering his face in shadow. The mysterious man leans down to the unfortunate victim and extends a hand. "No need to fear, I can help you." The homeless man takes the figure's hand and is led into a nearby alleyway. The Scarecrow turns back to the homeless man. "Fear is what keeps us sane, but too much of it. Now that's intriguing." Scarecrow grabs the homeless man by the neck and sticks the needles into it. The homeless man tries to scream, but he can't. Everything around him begins to glow a fiery orange as the Scarecrow distorts into a twisted monster. The homeless man runs out into the alley and back into the streets where he sees a world on fire. Everyone around him has become demented. Creatures without life, possessed beings warped to Scarecrow's image. The homeless man falls to the ground and screams as the figures close in on him. He looks around for anyone to save him, but he sees the Scarecrow emerge from the alley's shadows. Scarecrow watches as his test subject is tortured by his own mind. Then the homeless man looks into his hand. He sees a knife. How did it get here? There's no time to think. He uses the knife on the horrific monsters that surround him. He stabs 3 of them. He repeatedly stabs the monsters over and over again, and he does this until the fear dissipates. The world recedes and he's left alone. He looks around and sees the streets around him empty. He looks down to see himself covered in blood and standing above 3 dead bodies, innocent people, their lives snuffed out in an instant. So, as you can see from this opening, the villain of the first movie will be Scarecrow. I think he's the perfect villain to introduce these more out there kinds of villains, ease the general audience into the fantastical elements of the Caped Crusader before we go all in with the second movie. After this, we see Wayne Manor. We're introduced to this version of Bruce Wayne. He's the opposite of Robert Pattinson's grim and depressed take on the character. He is the billionaire playboy. He's the kind of guy to fall asleep at his own charity event. He's the kind of guy who won't show up to his own awards ceremony. This movie would be taking place shortly after the death of Jason Todd. Bruce is becoming more violent and angry, which causes him to be more ruthless to the criminals of Gotham, and that's where our second lead comes in. Tim Drake is a fantastic Robin. Not only is he the smartest, but he's also one of the most qualified to take over for Batman when Bruce stops being the Dark Knight. Like most Robins, he's an orphan. With Tim, Bruce should see himself in the young man. The 16-year-old kid was the only Robin to volunteer for the role. He noticed Batman's anger and he discovered the identity of the Bat using his genius intellect and detective skills. So why is the Scarecrow the perfect villain for this movie? Batman is dealing with the death of Jason Todd and he fears letting others in. His relationship with Alfred is falling apart and even Catwoman doesn't want to be around him as much because Batman needs a Robin. So once Tim goes out to Bruce, saying he knows who he is, Bruce shuts him out. He can't risk another child's blood on his hands. Most of this movie would be a Batman solo film without Robin, but the setup is all here for the sequel. Batman needs to grieve before he can heal. That's the main story of this movie. Batman goes through the stages of grief while dealing with a villain who plays off of that grief, and he makes it worse. To stop the Scarecrow, Batman must overcome his failures and become himself again. The finale of this movie would have Batman infected with Scarecrow's fear toxin. Scarecrow's plan throughout this movie would be to infect people with his toxin at a mass scale. He almost succeeds until Tim Drake arrives as Robin. This boy and his courage is what brings Batman to his senses. He breaks free from the nightmares, and he's able to stop Scarecrow with the help of his selfless sidekick. Sequels are meant to expand on the ideas of the first movie, while also changing the status quo in order to throw our characters into an unfamiliar situation. Good sequels test the protagonist on what they learned in the first movie. If Batman has overcome his grief and accepted Tim Drake as a new Robin, what does that look like? How will we show Batman's adjustment? Well, I give you Batman Old Wounds. In this movie, we are introduced to Nightwing. The story would revolve around Nightwing hunting down Killer Croc. The villain was in Bloodhaven, but made his way back into Gotham. Nightwing has been trying to find a cure to Waylon Jones and free him of his condition. Waylon is a metahuman born with physical deformities that gave him reptilian skin with razor-sharp teeth and long claws. Nightwing continues tracking Killer Croc when he runs into Batman once again. At the end of the first movie, we have Batman overcoming his grief and accepting Tim Drake as another Robin. An important thing about Bruce, though, is that he may overcome the grief, but he never lets go of that guilt. I want this movie to deal with two major plot lines. The first and most important is Batman and Robin going after Killer Croc alongside Nightwing, but the second should be flashbacks showing what happened between Batman and Nightwing. I also want Nightwing to help train Robin. He needs to explain to Tim why working alongside the Batman is a bad idea, but this is where we get to see Tim's willpower. Even after Nightwing tells him all the reasons he shouldn't, he still does. He knows he can help people, and this is the best way to do so. The finale of this movie will showcase Batman, Robin, and Nightwing defeating Killer Croc. This time, Batman and Nightwing are able to make amends with one another. They cure Killer Croc and they send him to Arkham State Hospital for further inspection to make sure he's stable. Real quick before I pitch the ending of this story, let me remind you to subscribe and like the video. I don't like asking, but YouTube is going to punish me if I don't, so just bear with me here. So for the finale, we have one more story to resolve. The death of Jason Todd, and the villain of this movie should be the Joker. I know, I'm just as tired of the Joker as everyone else. I literally just made a video on it, but I don't think we can resolve that conflict without the clown prince of crime himself. However, I still want Batman's more interesting rogues, so we're gonna go and have another antagonist, Mr. Freeze. Now, there isn't an obvious connection between the two, however, I have found a way to make this work. The story in this finale will follow Dr. Victor Freeze as he tries to save his wife from a terminal illness. He's desperate and he fears for his love. That's where the Joker comes in. After he murdered Jason Todd, he thought he had finally broken the Bat mentally. He saw how violent Batman had gotten and he thought he'd won, but then another Robin emerged and Batman was saved from himself. This movie is titled Batman: The Cold Joke. The movie will test Bruce on everything he's learned in the past two films. This trilogy has made Bruce grow as a person, and now he'll need to prove that growth. He has to confront the Joker and get the closure he needed, as well as save Mr. Freeze, like Nightwing had taught him in the previous film. But how does Mr. Freeze need saving? Joker promises Mr. Freeze the money he needs to save his wife if he kills the new Robin. So rather than Mr. Freeze needing to steal diamonds or whatever the hell he does, he's getting desperate, and he's being taken advantage of. Batman and Robin eventually find out that the Joker is behind this new villain, and Batman is faced with his tormentor once again. The finale of this movie would have Joker managing to kidnap Robin and hold him hostage. Batman would race against time trying to find his sidekick and not repeat history. When he does find Robin and Joker, he's horrified to find Tim has been infected by Joker's laughing gas. However, Batman is determined to save Tim. He's able to make contact with Mr. Freeze, and after seeing the torment Joker is putting the kid through, he's disgusted. How could he be an accomplice to such a horrific act? Mr. Freeze tells Batman that he'll be able to develop a cure to Joker's laughing gas. In return, he'll need help saving his wife. Mr. Freeze and Batman develop a cure. Mr. Freeze thanks Batman, and the Caped Crusader heads off to save Robin. The final battle takes place in the same warehouse Jason Todd was killed in. Batman fights the deranged Robin. Batman fights with all his strength, and he's able to get the cure into him, cleansing the toxin from his body, bringing him back, a reversal of the first film's finale. We then get the satisfying beatdown of the Joker. Before sending the clown to Arkham, Batman gives Joker a speech about grief and acceptance, proving he's grown since the beginning of the trilogy. With that, Joker is sent back to Arkham Asylum. The movie ends with Bruce Wayne signing off on Victor's research. He'll fund the scientist as long as he needs, as well as providing state-of-the-art technology. The closing imagery is of Bruce Wayne visiting the grave of Jason Todd. He accepts the loss, and as he's about to leave, he notices something. The dirt has been moved. What happened to Jason's body?